The longship crested the wave, its dragon-head prow cutting through the churning sea as men strained at their oars. Hakon Frostbeard stood at the bow, his weathered hand gripping the gunwale, gaze fixed on the distant shore of Northumbria. The salt spray mingled with the dried blood on his face, not his own, as the wind whipped his auburn beard. Behind him, 30 warriors prepared their weapons, eager for the coming raid. "The gods favor us today," said Gunnar, his oldest friend and shield brother, joining him at the bow. "Njord sends us smooth waters, and Thor's thunder keeps to the horizon." Hakon grunted, his blue eyes narrowing as the coast drew nearer. "It is not the gods' favor I seek," he said, "but my father's vengeance. The blood price must be paid." 10 winters have passed since his death, Gunnar said cautiously. "And each summer brings us back to these shores. How much Saxon blood will satisfy Odin's thirst?" "All of it," Hakon said, fingers tightening around the handle of his axe, his father's axe, the one he had recovered from the battlefield where Jarl Thorvald Frostbeard had fallen. "Until I find the Saxon dog who led them." In truth, Hakon no longer remembered his father's face clearly, only the stories of his death at Saxon hands, and the oath he had sworn as a 14-winter boy, that he would never rest until every member of the treacherous Thorne family lay dead. 10 years of raids had not found them. 10 years of searching had not brought him face to face with the enemy his clan had sworn to destroy. The men of his village respected him for his unwavering dedication to the blood oath. Songs were sung of his exploits in the Great Hall. Women sought his attention. Yet Hakon found no satisfaction in any of it. There was only the endless cycle of winter's planning and summer's raiding, the relentless pursuit of a vengeance that never seemed to fill the emptiness within him. "Land approaches," he called to his men, pushing aside his thoughts. "Ready your shields." The shore was lightly defended, a small fishing village with no palisade. Easy pickings. As the keel scraped the shallows, Hakon leapt into knee-deep water, raising his axe high. "For Frostbeard," he shouted, and his warriors echoed his cry. The villagers scattered before them like frightened birds. Some fled inland, others barricaded themselves in their homes. Hakon kicked in the door of the largest dwelling, expecting to find cowering peasants. Instead, a blade flashed in the darkness. He barely raised his shield in time. The sword, a fine weapon, not a farmer's tool, struck with precision. Hakon staggered back, surprised by the force of the blow. A figure emerged from the shadows, and Hakon prepared to cut down his opponent. Then he hesitated. Before him stood not a man, but a woman. Her golden hair was bound in a practical braid, her face smeared with ash in a crude attempt at disguise. But what struck him was not her beauty, though that was considerable, but the fierce determination in her green eyes. "Come no closer, Northman," she warned in his own tongue, her pronunciation rough but comprehensible. "I know how to use this." Hakon lowered his axe slightly, curiosity momentarily overriding bloodlust. "You speak the language of the Danes." "I speak many tongues," she replied, sword unwavering, including that of honorless raiders who prey on fishing villages. Something about her stance, the way she held the sword, this was no ordinary Saxon woman. "What is your name?" he demanded. "Why would I tell you that?" she scoffed. "So you can boast of killing me by name." A crash from outside broke the standoff. Flames were spreading through the village as his men worked methodically, gathering valuables and rounding up captives. "You have courage," Hakon said. "Put down the sword, and I will ensure you are not harmed." "The word of a Viking means nothing," she spat. "The word of Hakon Frostbeard means everything," he replied, lowering his axe fully and removing his helmet. "I swear it by Odin's eye." She hesitated, studying his face as if searching for deceit. Outside, a woman screamed. "Your men," she said urgently. They will hurt the villagers. Not if they surrender peacefully, Hakon replied. I do not permit the slaughter of those who yield. And what of those you take back to your lands? To slavery. Thraldom, he corrected. They will work, but they will live. The woman's shoulders slumped slightly, though her blade remained steady. I am Aelfwyn, she said finally. Aelfwyn Thorne. The name struck Hakon like a physical blow. Thorne. The family his father had named with his dying breath. The blood enemies of the Frostbeard clan. His fingers tightened around his axe handle. You know my name, she said, noting his reaction. Just as I know yours. Hakon Frostbeard, son of Thorvald the Merciless. My father was a great warrior, Hakon growled. Your father was a raider who fell to Saxon spears after burning our monastery and slaughtering unarmed monks, she countered. My father led the men who stopped him. Hakon's vision blurred with rage. Here, at last, was the vengeance he had sought for a decade, the daughter of his father's killer, alone before him. It would be so easy to strike her down, to fulfill his oath. Yet something held him back. Why are you here, among these fishermen? He demanded. I was traveling north, she replied. These people sheltered me. Gunnar appeared in the doorway. Hakon. The village is secured. We found, he stopped, seeing Aelfwyn. A prize for you, then, he asked with a grin. Leave us, Hakon ordered. When they were alone again, Hakon approached Aelfwyn slowly. Your father took mine from me, he said. By rights, your life is forfeit. Then take it, she challenged, lifting her chin. But know that it will change nothing. The dead remain dead. Hakon raised his axe, studying her face. She did not flinch or beg for mercy. There was only quiet resignation and unwavering courage. No, he decided abruptly. I will not kill you here, in this hovel. You will come with us, as my captive. Surprise flickered across her features. To what end? That is for me to know, Hakon replied, though in truth, he wasn't certain himself why he spared her. Perhaps it was the warrior's respect for her bravery, or perhaps he wished to prolong his vengeance. Or perhaps it was something in those green eyes that made him pause. When they returned to the ship, his men had gathered a modest haul of silver, food, and a dozen captives. Hakon ordered Aelfwyn bound at the wrists but treated with care. As they pushed off from shore, he watched her face, proud and defiant even in defeat, and felt something stir within him that had nothing to do with his blood oath. The journey back to their settlement in the northern reaches of Daneland took 7 days. Throughout the voyage, Hakon found himself drawn to Aelfwyn despite his determination to hate her. She tended to the wounded among the captives, singing softly to a frightened child, showing a strength of spirit that impressed even his hardened warriors. On the 3rd night, as they camped on a small island, he approached where she sat bound to a tree. You should eat, he said, offering a piece of bread. I'm not hungry, she replied, though her stomach betrayed her with a growl. Hakon sat beside her, closer than necessary. 10 years I've raided these coasts, searching for your family. And now that you've found one of us, she asked. What will you do? I haven't decided, he admitted. A quick death would fulfill my oath, but it seems inadequate. Is that why you keep me alive? To torture me slowly. There was no fear in her voice, only disdain. I am no torturer of women, he said, offended. Just a taker of lives and liberty, she countered. Hakon studied her in the firelight. Why were you traveling north? Your kind rarely ventured toward our lands willingly. She was silent for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Finally, she sighed. My brother is held captive by Norsemen near what you call Jorvik. I was seeking him. A rescue mission? Hakon laughed. One woman against a Viking settlement. I had a plan, she said stiffly. And what was that? I speak your tongue. I have studied your ways. I was to offer myself as a healer. I know the properties of herbs and the mending of wounds. Hakon raised an eyebrow. You have healing skills? My mother taught me before she died. Before your people raided our village and she took fever from hiding in the marshes. The accusation hung between them, and Hakon felt an unfamiliar pang of something like shame. He pushed it aside. Sleep, he said abruptly, rising. Tomorrow we reach the settlement. Hakon's village welcomed the returning raiders with feasting and celebration. Thralls prepared a great meal while the warriors shared tales of their exploits. The captives were divided among the chieftains according to their needs, some to work the fields, others assigned to households. Aelfwyn he kept for himself, installing her in a small chamber adjoining his own house. He assigned an old thrall woman to watch her and removed her bindings. You are not to leave this house, he told her. But you will not be mistreated. Why this mercy, she demanded. Is it to torment my father when you send him word that you hold his daughter? Hakon frowned. Your father lives. Of course he lives, she said. Though he is old now, and his fighting days are past. This news disturbed Hakon more than he cared to admit. For 10 years, he had imagined his vengeance complete upon killing the Saxon who had led the attack on his father. Yet now, faced with the reality of the man's daughter, his purpose seemed less clear. That night, as the celebration continued in the great hall, Hakon sat apart, watching as Aelfwyn moved cautiously among the thralls, helping an old woman with her tasks. Your Saxon prize seems more servant than captive, observed Gunnar, joining him with 2 horns of mead. The men talk. Let them, Hakon said, accepting the drink. They say you've gone soft, his friend continued. That you should have killed the daughter of Thorne where you found her. And what do you say? Hakon asked. Gunnar shrugged. I say there are many ways to exact vengeance. Though I wonder if that's still what you seek. Hakon glared at him, but Gunnar merely laughed and rejoined the celebration. As the days passed, Aelfwyn's presence in his household created an unexpected tension. She was neither thrall nor guest, captive nor free. She tended to the sick in the village, her skill with herbs quickly earning respect. Hakon found himself watching her more often than he cared to admit, impressed by her adaptability and quiet dignity. One evening, returning from hunting, he found her gathering herbs along the forest edge, the old thrall woman dozing some distance away. You could have run, he noted, approaching silently. Aelfwyn straightened, unsurprised by his appearance. To where? I am in a strange land, surrounded by your people. Besides, she added, gesturing to the herbs in her basket, I am needed here. Your healer's knowledge is limited. You care for the well-being of those who hold you captive. I care for those who suffer, she corrected. As should any Christian soul. Hakon scoffed. Your white Christ teaches weakness. He teaches mercy, she countered. Something your gods seem to lack. Our gods understand that life is battle, Hakon replied. They do not promise peace in this world or the next. And yet you seek peace through vengeance, she observed. Has 10 years of raiding brought you closer to it? The question struck deeper than Hakon wanted to admit. Before he could respond, shouts came from the village. They turned to see people running toward the shore, where a ship had appeared. Raiders? Aelfwyn asked, tensing. No, Hakon said, recognizing the sail pattern. Traders from the east. The arrival of the merchant ship brought news and goods from distant lands. As the villagers gathered to barter and hear stories, Hakon kept Aelfwyn close. The traders spoke of conflicts in the east, of opportunities for warriors willing to serve foreign kings. That night, as the trading continued by torchlight, one of the merchant's thralls, a dark-haired man with a scarred face, approached Aelfwyn as she stood at the edge of the gathering. "You are Saxon," he said quietly in her language. She nodded cautiously. "There is word of a Saxon prisoner in Jorvik," the man continued. "A noble's son named Thorne." Aelfwyn's composure broke. "My brother! Is he well? Is he alive?" "Alive, but not well," the thrall replied. "The Jarl who holds him demands a great ransom." "What ransom?" she asked desperately. "I must know." 300 pieces of silver, or he will be sold to Irish slavers when they come with the spring tide." Hakon, who had been watching the exchange from a distance, approached. "What news does this thrall bring that brightens your face?" he asked in the Norse tongue. The thrall bowed and backed away quickly. Aelfwyn hesitated, then spoke the truth. "News of my brother. He lives, but will be sold to Irish slavers if not ransomed before spring." Hakon studied her face in the flickering torchlight. "And you think I would help the son of my enemy?" "No," she said softly. "But I would beg anyway." Something in her voice, in the proud way she asked for mercy without surrender, stirred Hakon deeply. "Come," he said abruptly. "The night grows cold." In his house, with the door barred against the night, Hakon paced while Aelfwyn sat still as stone by the hearth. "Your brother," he said at last. "What is he like?" The question seemed to surprise her. "Edmund is gentle. He loves music and learning. He was to be a monk before." She trailed off. "Before what?" "Before your people came. Before our father sent him to deliver tribute to the Norsemen at Jorvik, hoping to buy peace. They took the tribute and kept him hostage." Hakon frowned. "This is not our way. Agreements should be honored. Yet you wonder why we distrust Northmen," she said bitterly. Hakon sat opposite her, the fire between them casting dancing shadows on the walls. "If what you say is true, your brother was taken dishonorably." Hope flickered in Aelfwyn's eyes. "Then you will help him." "Why would I?" Hakon demanded. "His father killed mine." "In battle," she countered. "After your father raided our lands." "There is blood on both sides, Hakon Frostbeard." "When does it end?" The question hung in the air between them, unanswerable and heavy with implication. That night, Hakon dreamt of his father, not as the great warrior of legend, but as the man who had taught him to fish, to track game, to read the stars. In the dream, his father's face was sad as he said, "The axe forgets, but the tree remembers." He woke troubled, the first light of dawn creeping through the shutters. Rising quietly, he found Aelfwyn already awake, grinding herbs with a small stone mortar. "If I helped your brother," he said without preamble, "what would you offer in return?" She looked up, her hand stilling. "I have nothing to give." "Nothing?" "My freedom is already taken. My skills I give freely to your sick and wounded." "What else would you have of me?" Hakon stepped closer. "A truth." "What truth?" "Tell me of the day my father died." Pain flashed across her face. "Why would you ask this?" "Because for 10 years I've carried an oath built on the words of dying men and vengeful kinsmen. I would hear it from the daughter of the man who led the Saxons." Aelfwyn set down her mortar and stood to face him. "Your father came with 3 ships at dawn. The monastery bells were ringing for morning prayer when his men set fire to the village. The monks were dragged from the chapel and slaughtered on the altar steps. Hakon's jaw tightened, but he nodded for her to continue. My father was visiting the monastery that day. He had brought Edmund to study with the monks. When the attack came, he gathered what men he could, farmers mostly, with hunting spears and woodsmen's axes. They met your warriors on the beach as they returned to their ships laden with church treasures. And he killed my father, Hakon said flatly. Aelfwyn shook her head. No. Your father was wounded by another, a monk who had taken up a fallen spear. My father found him dying on the sand. He knelt beside him, tried to staunch the bleeding. Hakon stared at her. You lie? I was there, she said simply. I had followed my father, against his orders. I saw him try to save Thorvald Frostbeard, heard your father curse him for his mercy. Why would he try to save the man who attacked his people? Hakon demanded. Because that is what our faith teaches, she replied. And because my father was a wiser man than most. He knew that killing raiders only brings more in search of vengeance. Hakon turned away, his world tilting on its axis. If what she said was true, if his father had died despite the efforts of the very man he had sworn to destroy, then his decade of raids had been built on a foundation of sand. I need proof, he said at last. There is none, save my word, she replied. And this? She reached into her garment and withdrew a small iron pendant on a leather cord. Your father wore this. He gave it to mine before he died, said to return it to his son. Hakon took the pendant with trembling fingers. He recognized it immediately, his father's hammer of Thor, worn since before Hakon's birth. Why did you not tell me this before? Would you have believed me? She asked. Would it have mattered to the boy sworn to vengeance? Hakon closed his fist around the pendant, feeling its familiar weight. I don't know what to believe. Then believe this, she said, stepping closer. My brother is innocent of any crime against your people. If you help him, you break the cycle that has claimed too many lives already. Their eyes met, and Hakon felt something shift within him, a crack in the foundation of hatred that had supported him for so long. 300 pieces of silver, he said finally. I have less than half that amount. I can work, she said eagerly. My healing skills, no, he interrupted. There is another way. He turned to the corner of the room where his weapons hung. Raids have brought me to this point. Perhaps one more will see it ended. As winter loosened its grip on the land, Hakon prepared his ship and gathered a crew of trusted warriors. To his surprise, many volunteered despite knowing the purpose was to rescue a Saxon prisoner rather than seek plunder. You've earned their loyalty, Gunnar explained as they loaded provisions. And many are curious about this Saxon woman who has tamed the vengeful son of Thorvald. She has not tamed me, Hakon growled. Gunnar merely laughed. The bear always believes himself untamed, even as he dances for honey. The night before their departure, Hakon found Aelfwyn at the shore, watching the waves under a sky brilliant with stars. We sail with the morning tide, he said, joining her. I should come with you, she replied. It's too dangerous. He's my brother. And I speak the language better than any of your men. Hakon knew she was right, though the thought of taking her into danger troubled him more than it should. Very well. But you will obey me without question once we reach Jorvik. She nodded, then surprised him by taking his hand. Thank you, Hakon Frostbeard. Whatever happens, know that you have done a good thing. Her touch sent warmth through him that had nothing to do with the spring air. He found himself wondering what it would be like to return from this journey and have her welcome him not as captor but as, what? The thought both confused and intrigued him. They sailed south with favorable winds, reaching the bustling trading center of Jorvik within a week. The settlement was larger than Hakon's village, with ships from many lands crowding its harbor. Norse was commonly spoken here, but Aelfwyn's knowledge of Saxon proved valuable as they sought information about her brother. Disguised as a trader's wife, with her hair covered and her face partly concealed, Aelfwyn moved through the marketplace gathering whispers while Hakon and his men established themselves as warriors seeking employment. His held in the compound of Jarl Eriksson, she reported on the third day, slipping into the alehouse where Hakon waited. In the northern part of the settlement, behind a wooden palisade. Eriksson, Hakon mused. I've heard of him. A wealthy man with many thralls and few friends. The silver would be difficult to gather in time, Gunnar added. The Irish traders arrive within the week. Hakon studied the crude map Aelfwyn had drawn. Then we take him by stealth, not silver. They planned carefully. Hakon's men would create a distraction at the main gate, a brawl between supposed drunken warriors, while he and Aelfwyn slipped in through a section of palisade weakened by recent rains. The night they chose was dark, clouds hiding the moon and stars. As planned, Gunnar led several men to the gate, where they began a loud argument with the guards. Hakon and Aelfwyn crept along the wall until they found the spot she had marked. Stay close, he whispered, helping her through the gap they created. Inside, they moved from shadow to shadow until they reached the thrall quarters, a long, low building near the main house. Aelfwyn led the way, having memorized the compound's layout from a kitchen thrall she had befriended. They found Edmund chained to the wall in a small storage room, his face gaunt and his eyes hollow. He did not recognize his sister at first, flinching away from her touch. Edmund, she whispered, cradling his face. It's Aelfwyn. I've come to take you home. Recognition dawned slowly in his eyes. Aelfwyn? How? There's no time, Hakon interrupted, working on the chains with tools he had brought. Can he walk? I can walk, Edmund said weakly, his gaze moving suspiciously to Hakon. Who is this Northman? A friend, Aelfwyn said simply. As they helped Edmund to his feet, a shout came from outside. Their distraction had ended too soon, or someone had discovered the breach in the palisade. Either way, alarm was spreading through the compound. We must hurry, Hakon urged, supporting Edmund as they slipped from the building. They had almost reached the gap in the wall when torchlight flared ahead of them. 3 armed guards appeared, weapons drawn. Run, Hakon ordered, pushing Aelfwyn and Edmund toward the palisade. I'll hold them off. Aelfwyn hesitated. Hakon, go. Drawing his sword, Hakon charged the guards. He fought with all the skill earned through years of raids, his blade a blur in the torchlight. One guard fell, then another, but the third landed a glancing blow to his side. Pain lanced through him, but he managed to dispatch the man with a powerful strike. Clutching his wound, Hakon staggered to the palisade. Aelfwyn was waiting on the other side, her face pale with fear. You're hurt, she gasped, seeing the blood seeping between his fingers. It's nothing, he grunted. Where is your brother? Gunnar has him. They're heading for the ship. More shouts came from behind them as reinforcements arrived. Taking Aelfwyn's hand, Hakon led her through the darkened streets of Jorvik, avoiding the main thoroughfares. By the time they reached the harbor, Gunnar had Edmund safely aboard and was preparing to cast off. Quickly, he called as they scrambled up the gangplank. The whole settlement will be after us soon. As they pushed away from the dock, Aelfwyn tended to Hakon's wound. The cut was deep but had missed any vital organs. She cleaned it with wine and stitched it closed with steady hands. You risked your life for my brother, she said softly as she worked. Why? Hakon watched her face in the dim light of the ship's lantern. "I'm not certain," he admitted. "Perhaps to prove your father was the man you claimed. Perhaps to end the blood feud that has consumed too many years of my life." "And has it ended?" she asked, tying off the last stitch. Before he could answer, Edmund approached, steadier on his feet now that they were away from Jorvik. "My sister says you are Hakon Frostbeard," he said, his Norse halting but intelligible. "Son of Thorvald." Hakon nodded, tensing slightly. "Then I must thank you," Edmund continued. "Our father often spoke of his regret that he could not save your father's life." "He tried," Hakon acknowledged. "Aelfwyn told me." Edmund glanced at his sister. "She gave you the pendant?" "Yes." "Good. Our father wanted it returned to its rightful owner." Edmund swayed slightly, still weak from his captivity. "I think I must rest now." As Edmund settled near the bow, wrapped in furs against the night chill, Aelfwyn remained at Hakon's side. "What happens when we return to your settlement?" she asked. "Will you keep us as captives still?" Hakon looked out at the dark water. "No," he said after a moment. "You are free to go. I will provide a ship to take you home when your brother is stronger." Something like disappointment flickered across her face. "I see." They sailed north with a favorable wind, making good time. By the third day, they were nearing Hakon's settlement when a lookout spotted sails on the horizon. "3 ships," Gunnar reported. "Moving fast. Raiders, by the look of them." Hakon joined him at the bow, studying the approaching vessels. "Not raiders," he said grimly. "Ericsson's men." They had no hope of outrunning the pursuers. Hakon's ship, though swift, was burdened with too many men and had a head start that was quickly diminishing. "We make for the settlement," Hakon decided. "We'll have better chance with our people behind us." They reached the harbor just as Ericsson's ships appeared around the headland. The village erupted into activity as warriors gathered and women hurried children to safety. Hakon helped Edmund ashore while Aelfwyn gathered what healing supplies she could find. "Take your brother to my house," Hakon told her. "Stay there until this is finished." "Be careful," she said, her hand lingering on his arm. As Ericsson's men made landfall, Hakon stood with his warriors on the beach, weapons ready. The Jarl himself strode forward, a massive man with a scarred face and cold eyes. "Hakon Frostbeard," he called. "You have stolen my property and slain my men. For this, your village will burn and your people will serve me." "The Saxon was taken dishonorably," Hakon replied. "You broke faith with those who sent him as emissary." Ericsson laughed. "What care I for Saxon honor? Their silver spends as well as any." "Leave now," Hakon warned, "and no blood need be shed." "I think not," the Jarl replied, signaling his men forward. The battle was fierce and desperate. Though outnumbered, Hakon's warriors fought with the advantage of defending their homes. Swords clashed and axes bit deep as the two forces collided on the strand. Hakon found himself facing Ericsson in the heart of the melee. The Jarl was powerful but slower than Hakon, who fought with a clarity of purpose he had never known in all his years of raiding. This was not vengeance or glory he fought for, but protection of his people, of Aelfwyn, of a future suddenly rich with possibility. Ericsson's blade caught him across the shoulder, reopening his previous wound. Hakon staggered but recovered, driving forward with renewed determination. With a roar that seemed to come from the depths of his soul, he swung his father's axe in a mighty arc that the Jarl could not evade. The blade struck true, and Ericsson fell to his knees, his life's blood spilling onto the sand. As their leader fell, his men faltered. Many fled back to their ships, while others threw down their weapons in surrender. Hakon stood breathing heavily, his wounded shoulder burning like fire. Through the haze of pain, he saw Aelfwyn running toward him across the beach, her face a mask of concern. "You should have stayed hidden," he said as she reached him. "When have I ever done as I am told?" she replied, examining his wound. "This needs tending." As she led him toward the village, Gunnar approached with news that the remaining raiders had fled. The victory was complete, but not without cost. Several of Hakon's men had fallen, and many more were wounded. In the days that followed, Aelfwyn worked tirelessly alongside the village healer, tending to the injured. Edmund too recovered his strength, proving himself useful by helping rebuild damaged structures. A week after the battle, as the sun set over the western sea, Hakon found Aelfwyn at the shore, watching the waves as she had the night before they sailed to Jorvik. "Your brother is well enough to travel now," he said, joining her. "I've prepared a ship, as promised." She nodded, her eyes remaining on the horizon. "Thank you. Will you return to your father's lands?" "Yes," she said quietly. "He grows old and will be glad to see Edmund safe." Hakon felt a heaviness in his chest he could not explain. "And you? Will you be glad to return?" Aelfwyn turned to face him then, her green eyes searching his. "I don't know," she admitted. "There is much I have learned here. Much I would miss." "What would you miss?" he asked, stepping closer. "The northern lights," she said. "The smell of pine forests. The sound of Norse songs in the great hall." She paused, then added softly, "A certain stubborn Viking who learned that vengeance is not the only path." Hakon took her hand, marveling at how small it seemed in his own. "Stay," he said simply. "As what?" she asked. "Your thrall? Your prize?" "As my wife," he replied. "If you would have me." Surprise widened her eyes. "Your people would never accept a Saxon as their leader's wife." "They already have," he said. "They've seen your courage, your skill, your compassion. Many owe their lives to your healing hands." "And your blood oath?" she asked. "The vengeance you swore." Hakon touched the Thor's hammer that now hung around his neck, his father's pendant, returned by the daughter of the man who had tried to save him. "Some oaths bind us to the past," he said. "Others free us to build a future. I choose the latter." Aelfwyn's smile was like the first light of dawn breaking over the sea. "Then I will stay," she said, stepping into his embrace. "And perhaps in time, our peoples will find more than blood between them." Their hand-fasting ceremony was held at midsummer, when the days were longest and the land was rich with life. Edmund stood as witness for his sister, while Gunnar stood for Hakon. The old ways were observed, rings exchanged, promises made, blood mingled, but there were new elements too, a Christian blessing spoken quietly by Aelfwyn, a symbol of the bridge they were building between two worlds. In the years that followed, their settlement prospered. Trade replaced raiding as Hakon's ships carried goods rather than warriors to distant shores. Edmund returned to Saxon lands but visited often, bringing news and fostering connections between the communities. When their first child was born, a son with his father's blue eyes and his mother's determined spirit, they named him Thorvald Edmund, honoring both their fathers and the peace that had been forged from conflict. And when Aelfwyn's father finally journeyed north to meet his grandchild, the old Saxon warrior and the Viking chieftain sat together by the hearth fire, sharing stories of battles long past and hopes for days yet to come. "Your father was a brave man," the old Saxon told Hakon one evening. "I have carried the regret that I could not save him all these years." "You tried," Hakon replied. "That is more than most would have done. And in saving your daughter, perhaps his spirit found peace at last." As the seasons turned and their family grew, Hakon often stood at the shore watching the endless dance of waves upon the sand. Sometimes Aelfwyn would join him, her hand finding his as naturally as the tide finds the shore. "What are you thinking?" she would ask. And he would smile, drawing her close against the northern wind. That a heart once sworn to vengeance now beats only for love, and that is the greatest victory of all.